Mr. White. Harvey Keitel's portrayal of Larry Dimmock, better known as Mr. White, anchors Reservoir Dogs with a balance of professionalism and vulnerability. Mr. White is a veteran criminal who has seen every side of the business. His seasoned experience and intuitive understanding of people allow him to act as the film's moral center. Despite living outside the law, he operates by a personal code that values loyalty and camaraderie. His gregarious nature means he cannot fully detach from those around him. He talks about his past openly, including a former partner in crime named Alabama, a subtle link that ties this film to Tarantino's later True Romance. Mr. White is also one of the few characters in the film to show deep compassion, forming a near-paternal bond with the bleeding Mr. Orange, even holding him as he lies in a pool of blood. This vulnerability is central to the film's emotional weight and highlights the tragedy of his final choice when he is forced into a deadly standoff with Joe Cabot and Nice Guy Eddie. Keitel's involvement was far more than a simple casting decision. It was the catalyst that elevated Reservoir Dogs from a scrappy $30,000 concept to a $1.5 million professional film. After receiving the script through a chain of connections, Keitel was so captivated by Tarantino's vision that he agreed not only to star in the film but also to co-produce it. He personally financed casting sessions in New York, where Tim Roth, Steve Buscemi, and Michael Madsen were eventually brought on board. Keitel's participation gave the project instant credibility and attracted investment that would have been impossible for a first-time director to secure on his own. Interestingly, Keitel has a history of appearing in debut films by major directors. He previously starred in Martin Scorsese's first feature, Who's That Knocking at My Door, and Ridley Scott's first film, The Duelists. His presence on set was a steadying influence, grounding Tarantino's debut in a sense of gravity that helped the film transcend its indie roots and become a defining work of 90s cinema. Mr. Orange. Tim Roth's Freddie Neuendijk, better known as Mr. Orange, is the beating heart of Reservoir Dogs and the engine that drives its tension. As an undercover cop embedded in Joe Cabot's crew, Mr. Orange operates in a constant state of deception. His ability to convincingly pass as a criminal is the key to the film's central twist and the source of its relentless suspense. After being shot during the botched diamond heist, Mr. Orange spends most of the film bleeding out on the warehouse floor. His physical suffering becomes a visual and emotional ticking clock that keeps the audience on edge. The claustrophobic setting magnifies his agony, turning the warehouse into both a crime scene and a deathbed. Mr. Orange's bond with Mr. White adds layers of tragedy. He gains the older man's trust so completely that White ultimately kills for him, unaware of the betrayal. When Mr. Orange finally confesses his true identity in the closing moments, the revelation shatters the fragile alliance and transforms the story into a brutal meditation on loyalty and trust. Roth's path to the role was as unconventional as the film itself. Known for being crap at auditions, he had a personal rule against reading for parts, initially turning down the audition entirely. That changed during a late-night, beer-fueled session with Quentin Tarantino and Harvey Keitel, in which Roth read every single role in the script, breaking his own rule in a moment of drunken camaraderie. This unconventional audition mirrored the chaotic spirit of the film and convinced Tarantino that Roth was the perfect choice. To add authenticity, Roth's real-life dialect coach, Suzanne Celeste, was cast as the woman his character accidentally shoots in the flashback scene, creating a meta layer of tension for Roth on set. His performance demanded playing multiple layers at once, an English actor playing an American cop pretending to be a criminal. Roth described the challenge as maximum confusion, which is exactly what gives Mr. Orange his anxious, desperate energy. His portrayal ensures that the audience feels every drop of blood and every ounce of guilt as the story barrels toward its devastating conclusion. Mr. Blonde. Michael Madsen's portrayal of Vic Vega, alias Mr. Blonde, is one of the most chilling performances in crime cinema. His calm, almost playful sadism defines the film's most disturbing moments. Mr. Blonde is a career criminal recently released from prison who joins the heist crew out of loyalty to Joe Cabot. Unlike the other characters, who are frantic and argumentative, Mr. Blonde exudes an unnerving stillness. His focus is not on survival or the heist's success, but on exerting power through cruelty. This is most memorably shown in the infamous warehouse torture scene, where Mr. Blonde dances casually to Stuck in the Middle with You before cutting off Officer Marvin Nash's ear. The dance, the music, and the slow, deliberate pacing transform the scene into something far more disturbing than a typical act of cinematic violence. It becomes a portrait of sadism for its own sake. Behind the scenes, Madsen initially wanted to play Mr. Pink, but was persuaded by Tarantino to take on the more sinister Mr. Blonde. Despite his hesitation about being typecast as another gun-toting heavy, Madsen delivered one of the most iconic performances of his career. His dance during the torture scene was completely improvised. He had never heard the song before filming and based his movements on a quirky James Cagney routine he remembered. He also ad-libbed the line, "Hey, what's going on? You hear that?" after cutting the ear, adding an extra layer of menace.
"Hey, what's going on? You hear that?"
The emotional impact of the scene was heightened by Kirk Baltz, who played the tortured cop. During filming, he ad-libbed the desperate line, "I have a little kid at home." This moment hit Madsen hard, as he had just become a father, and he nearly broke character because he was so disturbed by the thought of leaving a child fatherless. The resulting performance is a blend of theatrical menace and real emotional conflict, which makes Mr. Blonde both terrifying and strangely human. The intensity of the scene was so powerful that it reportedly caused some audience members, including horror director Wes Craven, to walk out of early screenings. Mr. Pink. Steve Buscemi's Mr. Pink is the film's voice of reason, and the closest thing Reservoir Dogs has to a true survivor. Paranoid, anxious, and relentlessly practical, Mr. Pink is focused on one thing above all else: getting away with the diamonds. Unlike Mr. White, who is swayed by loyalty, or Mr. Blonde, who revels in chaos, Mr. Pink keeps his eye firmly on the objective. His no-nonsense approach makes him the only member of the crew to consistently act in a way that might actually lead to survival. This rationality is exemplified in his opening monologue about refusing to tip waitresses, which is more than just comic relief. It's a character-defining moment. The speech frames Mr. Pink as someone who rejects arbitrary social codes in favor of cold, self-interested logic. When the heist goes wrong, he is the one who pieces together what happened and immediately suspects that there is a rat in the crew. His suspicions turn out to be correct, proving that his paranoia is not only justified but perhaps the smartest instinct in the room. Buscemi was not originally intended to play Mr. Pink. Tarantino had written the role for himself, but after watching Buscemi's audition, Tarantino stepped aside and gave him the part. This decision turned out to be pivotal, as Buscemi's rapid-fire delivery and neurotic energy became one of the film's defining elements. Buscemi chose to play the role completely straight, never winking at the camera or leaning into comedy. This choice made Mr. Pink's frantic behavior feel authentic rather than cartoonish. The result is a performance that provides both tension and levity while grounding the film's escalating hysteria. Interestingly, Mr. Pink is also the only member of the crew who escapes the warehouse alive. While we hear faint gunfire and police shouting in the final moments, Tarantino later confirmed that Mr. Pink was indeed arrested off-screen, making him the sole character who walks away from the bloodbath in one piece. Buscemi's portrayal ensures that Mr. Pink stands out not only as the lone survivor, but also as the film's most pragmatic and oddly admirable figure. Nice Guy Eddie. Chris Penn's portrayal of Nice Guy Eddie brings a different energy to Reservoir Dogs. He is smoother and more talkative than the hardened criminals around him, but his loyalty to his father, Joe Cabot, makes him just as dangerous. Nice Guy Eddie functions as the bridge between the older, old-school crime boss and the younger generation of criminals. He tries to keep the crew calm after the heist implodes, but his attempts at mediation quickly collapse into rage when he becomes convinced that Mr. Orange is the informant. Eddie's most significant moment comes during the film's climactic Mexican standoff. In a scene of unbearable tension, Eddie aims his gun at Mr. White, while his father does the same, leading to a split-second eruption of violence that leaves all three characters dead or dying on the warehouse floor. This chaotic ending underscores the futility of the crew's loyalty and the inevitability of their downfall. The behind-the-scenes story of Nice Guy Eddie's death is one of the most famous production mishaps in Tarantino's career. According to Chris Penn, his character was never supposed to die in that shootout. No one actually fires at him in the choreography of the scene. However, during filming, the squib, the small explosive charge used to simulate a gunshot wound, went off prematurely, forcing Penn to drop to the ground. Instead of reshooting, Tarantino decided to keep the take, believing the ambiguity of Eddie's death would spark debate and add to the film's mystique. Penn later joked that Nice Guy Eddie died of a squib wound, turning what was essentially a technical error into a piece of enduring film lore. Penn's performance was also colored by his real-life personality. He was known for being playful and unpredictable on set, a quality that bled into Eddie's charm and quick temper. The result is a character who feels less like a stock gangster and more like a fully realized person caught in a spiraling tragedy. Joe Cabot. Lawrence Tierney's Joe Cabot is the grizzled patriarch of the criminal crew and the mastermind behind the diamond heist. Joe represents the old guard of organized crime, blunt, commanding, and unwaveringly confident in his ability to control the situation. From the moment he is introduced at the diner table, casually handing out color-coded aliases to the crew, Joe radiates authority. His presence in the warehouse after the heist immediately escalates the tension, as he is quick to suspect betrayal and insists that Mr. Orange is the rat. This accusation leads directly to the climactic Mexican standoff, where Joe's refusal to back down triggers the chain reaction of gunfire that ends the film. Joe's archetype is that of the crime boss, who trusts his instincts above all else, and those instincts ultimately lead to the bloody destruction of his entire crew. Tierney's reputation behind the camera was as intimidating as his on-screen persona. Known for being volatile and difficult to work with, Tierney allegedly clashed with Quentin Tarantino during filming and nearly came to blows with him. His off-screen unpredictability heightened the tension on set, making his scenes feel charged with real danger. One memorable detail is that when Joe refers to someone being dead as Dillinger, it is a sly nod to Tierney's earlier career, as he famously played real-life gangster John Dillinger in a 1945 film. This intertextual moment blurs the line between actor and character, giving Joe Cabot an almost mythic presence. Tarantino reportedly had to fire Tierney after production wrapped due to his disruptive behavior, but his performance was so commanding that it remained a cornerstone of the film. Joe Cabot stands as the embodiment of old-school criminal logic, and Tierney's real-life toughness made that portrayal completely convincing. His scenes are sparse but impactful, and his final moment, where he raises his gun in defiance, serves as the perfect, tragic punctuation mark to the doomed heist. Marvin Nash. Kirk Baltz's portrayal of Officer Marvin Nash provides Reservoir Dogs with one of its most harrowing emotional cores. hours. As the captured police officer held hostage in the warehouse, Marvin is the embodiment of helplessness and vulnerability. His primary function in the narrative is to raise the stakes and highlight the crew's escalating depravity. The most unforgettable sequence involving Marvin is the torture scene with Mr. Blonde, where he is beaten, taunted, and eventually has his ear cut off. This scene is horrifying not simply because of its violence, but because of Marvin's desperate, very human attempts to plead for his life, which make the moment painfully real for the audience. His presence amplifies the moral divide between the criminals. While Mr. Blonde sees him as an object to torment, Mr. White and Mr. Pink view him as a bargaining chip, revealing their differing approaches to survival and power. Baltz went to extraordinary lengths to ground Marvin Nash in reality. In preparation for the role, he asked Michael Madsen to lock him in the trunk of a car and drive around the neighborhood so he could physically feel what his character would experience. This intense form of method acting helped Baltz tap into a raw state of fear that translated on screen. During filming, Tarantino gave Baltz very little direction, telling him only to convince Mr. Blonde not to set him on fire. Baltz improvised many of his pleas, including the aforementioned heart-wrenching line, "I have a little kid at home." The unscripted honesty of that interaction gives the scene its devastating emotional punch. Marvin Nash may be a supporting character, but his role transforms the warehouse from a simple crime scene into a chamber of psychological terror. Mr. Brown. Quentin Tarantino's appearance as Mr. Brown is brief but unforgettable. He plays the getaway driver and one of Joe Cabot's crew members, killed off early in the story. Despite his limited screen time, Mr. Brown leaves a lasting impression thanks to the film's opening diner scene, where he delivers the now famous "Like a Virgin" monologue. This moment is classic Tarantino, a mix of pop culture analysis, humor, and audacity, and it sets the tone for the entire film. His interpretation of Madonna's song as a metaphor for sexual pain and vulnerability instantly establishes the film's willingness to dive into raw, provocative conversation before any violence even occurs. Mr. Brown's death occurs off-screen during the chaotic getaway, his blood-soaked demise serving as one of the first indicators that the heist has gone catastrophically wrong. Behind the scenes, the role of Mr. Brown was never meant to be a showcase for Tarantino's acting ability, but rather a way for him to appear in his own debut feature. He had originally written the role of Mr. Pink for himself, but, impressed by Steve Buscemi's audition, gave that part to him and kept the smaller role. This decision allowed Buscemi to fully realize Mr. Pink while giving Tarantino the chance to put his stamp on the film as a performer without overshadowing his actors. The "Like a Virgin" scene became so iconic that it prompted a reaction from Madonna herself, who sent Tarantino a copy of her erotica album with a cheeky note correcting his interpretation. "It's not about dick, it's about love." This off-screen exchange only adds to the legend surrounding the scene and illustrates Tarantino's knack for embedding cultural commentary into his characters' conversations. Mr. Brown might not survive past the first act, but his contribution to the film is lasting. His monologue is a microcosm of everything that makes Reservoir Dogs unique, bold, talkative, and unafraid to push boundaries. If you liked this breakdown of iconic characters in this movie, you're going to love the video on the screen, so go check it out now.